Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Solitude. And last time out, we built ourselves a little rail yard nestled into some awkward space. We're really liking how the rail flows through this area and round over the top of it as well. I think once all those trains are flowing, this is going to look particularly cool. And of course, we also put in our first unique factory. So that is really helping to bring in some extra cash, which is needed because today we're going to be doing a slightly different episode looking at major infrastructure. Because with Cities Skylines 2 rapidly approaching, I'm very keen to make sure we've at least got our downtown into Solitude before then. So planning out our major highways is absolutely crucial for that. So that is going to be the focus of the episode today. So how do we even go about planning this? Now, of course, you know, we've only got one major highway connection coming in like this. And the first thing to consider is major points of interest. Now, of course, I have said this before, but the main downtown is going to be in this location here. So we obviously want to bring in this major highway round, looping round the edge of the downtown and feeding access into that here. Now the second point of interest, again, as I've mentioned before, is going to be the airport, which will be over here. Now this is where it actually is on this island map. I know it's not ideal being so far away from the downtown and from residential locations where the people actually are. However, it really is the only flat land that we have that is really suitable to build a realistic sized airport on. And because it's there on the island as well, it makes sense to me. So we're going to be bringing that highway in down, feeding access to the downtown, but then actually looping it up, tunneling through this mountain because there's frankly no way we were going to get over it, and bringing it round the coast round to the airport. And this will also provide access to a small town that we'll put in here as well. Now on the flip side of it, we obviously want to provide alternative routes for people, so I will also create a very snug little intersection on this corner of this mountain next to the downtown, like really close to where the central business district will be. It will be a four-way, so we'll have the major highway flowing on this way, but also access into the downtown, and then bringing ourselves out a smaller local highway route around the coast this side to also feed into the airport. Which again just gives them alternative routes, and that really helps with traffic flow if you can think about and plan that out. Of course, with public transport as well, we're going to have the railway following this coastal road because it comes in from this side of the map, flows through Serenity, and then will come into a major transport hub in the downtown and continue on out to the airport to provide public transport access out here too. So that'll just kind of flow along our coastal road this side. Now, of course, that still leaves the entirety of the map up this side with no major highway access, which we do need to rectify. The islands are not going to have bridges out to them. They're all going to be connected via ferry. I don't think land bridges would be appropriate for this kind of distance that we're looking at, and also might wreck the vibe of Solitude. So I think ferry access will be nice for those. Some of the islands we're probably not going to build on, like this one. It's very much a kind of decorative volcanic island, probably similar to this one too, but I'd like to do some smaller builds on the couple of islands out here, and certainly these ones out this side, especially around the waterfall on this bottom island here. But in order to bring road access up here, what I'm thinking is we'll create a large intersection which flows from this main arterial that we'll have crossing here, which connects onto this one, which again is another alternative, slightly more arterial versus highway route into the downtown this side, but it will flow on up via a four-way intersection here, and the highway will continue on, tunnelling again through the mountain, no way we're going over this here, and down probably another tunnel through here, and then continuing on to feed into these areas where there'll be some larger towns, hopefully eventually too. And then what we can do is connect up coastal roads from the highway this side all the way round to it here, and then likewise produce another intersection this side from the main highway in and off the map, because that's going to really help any industrial traffic or any tourist traffic that wants to use the road to get in and out of Solitude. To again have an alternative route directly out of the city via the coastal road, as opposed to having to go down through almost the Serenity part of the highway here. And of course, you'll remember from a couple of episodes ago, we've also got this rail line feeding out here that will also bring up at some point, potentially not today, but also to feed access into the top side of the map this side too. So we should be pretty well covered with a coastal road almost the entire way round the Solitude main island, plus major highway routes crossing all the way across to the airport and also up and down through Solitude as well. So that really should give us pretty good access all the way around. So let's start by putting in our highway. And I'm not going to completely ignore the landscape here. As we know in Solitude, it's bumpy at best. I am going to ignore it to a certain point for the moment, because what I will do is add in the highway where I want it and then come through with some detailing to either tunnel or raise, or actually provide some retaining walls around highways in certain places, just to tidy that all up afterwards. So this is going to look awful, I suspect, until it starts to look all right at the detailing at the end. So let's also just start by making sure we haven't got tree anarchy on, we've got collision off, so that the trees are being removed as we place this in. So let's start by putting this highway in, following this tree line here, which I think will be a nice effect. And we want to keep our eye on where it's going, and to a point, like I said, the terrain. And we don't want it too bendy, because I was using freeform there, so we'll convert to some straighter sections in certain places, and then go back to freeform. We always want to make sure we're snapping to that 180-degree angle when using freeform to start off with. Then you can actually remove any angle snaps or other things as you so wish after. I'm just going to very simply bring this along like this, and for some reason it's already digging into the terrain, so you can see obvious places where maybe a small section of tunnel will be needed here. Certainly some smoothing and some levelling for sure. So we're going to bring this in like this, and again, ignore the ignore the levels for now. I am going to convert this to a raised section of highway here. So we'll come in like this, and we may as well raise it up a little bit. So let's go up to 9 meters, and then we'll start to curve this around the bend that we want to have here. So we want this intersection on this corner of the mountain, this side. So we'll bring that up like that for now. Yeah, you can just see it's like bumpy as anything, which we'll absolutely sort out. So I am going to sort out the height of it now before we put in the parallel section to it. Now, I think that is a gentle enough slope for a highway, so I'm kind of okay with it here. I think we do need to do, that's a very sudden change to flat, so we do need to do some smoothing out this side. So let's go into Network Multi-Tool, we'll go to the slope function, and we'll start to do a little bit of sloping here. I'm thinking if we do that, so it's going up quite a bit there, yeah, we can cut it into the mountainside, because I'm very happy to have these kind of sections of cliff face next to the highway, like we have in the bit of highway in the entrance to Solitude. I think that slope is generally okay. Plus 1.4, absolutely fine with that. And then from this point, yeah, like I said, we're going to upgrade this to a tunnel here. So let's get off Network Multi-Tool. I'll grab our section of highway here and start to upgrade it. I don't want to go too far. I don't mind a little bit of cutting into the mountainside. This looks slightly bumpy here. So let's go back to Slope Tool. And we'll just click from this node through to this node, and we'll just flatten that out like that. That's a lot more smooth there. Got our small section of tunnel, which I do like. I want quite a few kind of very small sections of tunnel ultimately, I think, throughout this. So then let's just have a little look at what happens if we smooth this out. Now, the annoying thing is we can't undo from Network Multi-Tool. Yeah, this is a bit interesting. It's a bit interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to bring the height of the highway down here. I don't want it that high flowing over our city. We want it raised a little bit, but not too much. So like that will do fine. And then let's take from that node through to this node. In fact, actually, let's go slightly further because that one looks a little bit more raised there. And we'll just slope that. Okay, so yeah, that is looking a hell of a lot better. And then we can go through and sort out this section. I think I'll go right from the edge of the tunnel here, just to smooth that out. So yes, that is an awful lot better. That feels pretty smooth and quite nice, actually. Yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. Tunneling underneath, going off through this kind of ravine section here, and then down to meet our initial point this side. Okay, so I think I'm at a point where I'm happy with the level and height of this and the shape of this highway. So let's go ahead and use parallel road function. And we'll go right from this node all the way down to this node here. Now, it's saying it won't do it because I think we're going through a tunnel this side. So we'll change this back to normal here. Yeah, and then that way, if we just do it in sections, we can get all the way down like this. And I do want to provide a little bit of an offset here. So that's a nice and equal gap to the highway that we already had coming in here. So yeah, quite pleased with that. Then I think actually we've got quite a nice smooth network here running through into the downtown. So now what we need to do is then continue this on round to the airport. we got that in, and yes, we do have one of the world's most dangerous highways here. But I think on a tropical island like this, like, I don't think that's uncommon. If I can find some props and some signage to say, slow the hell down, as you're coming down to this crazy highway bend, then I will do that. I will add those in. But I think otherwise it works actually pretty nicely, and it's actually pretty smooth as well. Like coming down this slope, I think was really the steepest area here, but I think it's come in quite nicely. It looks a little bit bumpy here. I might change that up later on. But the slope itself is really actually not too steep in this format, so kind of pleased with how that's come out. So let's have a little talk about this intersection, and I will flash up on screen my very, very rough hand-drawn in paint intersection design for this, which I'm not sure if the intersection technically has a name. One of you guys can let me know in the comments if it does, but I've kind of just made this up as we go along to suit this area and suit my needs for what I want in here. So to start off with, I am going to just draw in our main roads coming into the intersection, because it is going to be four-way, like I said, but it's slightly weird four-way because the main highway's looping off at a sort of 90-degree angle almost. So for our coastal highway, I'm going to use just the main four-lane two-way highway national road, and we're going to place this on the ground, so the intersection ultimately is going to come underneath our main highway here. So yeah, we are going to destroy some of the trees, but we are going to place this in really hugging the bottom of this mountainside like this, so it's nicely on the level with the downtown, but they can come into the intersection this side. Let's actually just go ahead and clear out some of these trees so that we can see a little bit easier around this area here. So that's that road coming in. Now the other road that I want coming in is going to go directly into the downtown, so it's going to feed into a little kind of downtown, slightly more local road. So I'm actually for this going to do a couplet style road, and we're going to use two separate two-lane one-way roads. I'm going to do it with grass for now, but of course we'll probably change this up as we come to do the downtown. So what I do want with this road is it almost parallel to this beach, so that we can create a really nice road network off the back of that. So let's start by drawing in one road here, and we're just going to eyeball this. It won't be absolutely perfectly parallel, but it will be good enough for us to use. And we'll keep a gap of one in between it so that we can do some nice trees and some different detailing in the middle of it, and then it feels like a nice couplet system coming in there. So these are all of the roads that ultimately we need to connect up. actually really quite pleased with this intersection. I tend to usually just go for kind of bog standard boring ones like a parklow or a diamond or a trumpet. 4-stack maybe for a 4-way interchange like this, but yeah, I feel quite pleased with this. It actually looks quite nice, and all of the levels and the heights kind of flow together generally pretty well. There's a few little bumps which I might try and iron out when we come to do the detailing. And we will, of course, go around all of this and put in crash barriers, intersection marking tool, lots of that needed for some of these big nodes that we have here. But I think once all of that is in, it's going to look pretty nice, actually. And it is still relatively compact. Like, we've kept our nice flat building area this side for the downtown. We'll have it pretty built up all the way around this highway, both sides here. So it should look pretty good once it's all integrated in. And yeah, I'm very, very pleased with that indeed. So I do now just need to go ahead and connect up this coastal road, and I'm actually going to cut this out of the video because you don't need to see me just trailing this highway all around the coast. So just like that. And I have actually laid down the rail line next to this, although it does follow this coastal road all the way around very closely. This won't be the case in the end. What we will do is bring it off into various stations as we go along the way. I just want to lay down the main element of the track here, just so that we've got it feeding into our airport down this way. And I've actually connected this up into the highway that we had here too, bringing it down from those two separate 2-lane roads into the national road here. Again, intersection marking tool needed, of course, here. And I feel like that's nice and smooth. I've actually just made this a little bit of a softer curve on this corner as well, which I think flows a little bit better. But that's a very simple coastal road down this side. And I have also actually just extended this road that we had here, and I've tried to make this one a little bit more interesting. So it cuts up into the mountains in some places and forms bridges as it goes round, so it's not all just smooth kind of up next to the coast and flat there. Similar over here as well, we go up into a bridge section as we go up this hill, and then that kind of smooths out into a little bit of a ravine almost coming down here and then down into our downtown. And I'm not going to connect up these roads for the time being. We'll come to that when we come to the downtown, same as feeding in this arterial that we've got coming in here. So we'll do a whole episode laying down our downtown road network before we go ahead and build it. And of course that will include the transport hub to connect up all the rail lines there too. So the next thing I do want to approach is this junction here and getting this highway across these mountains and down onto this side so we can feed it into, again, another junction over here. Very heavy intersection episode today, so apologies if that's not really your thing. But hopefully it's interesting to some of you in terms of how to plan out these road networks and maybe a little bit of inspiration for some wild and wacky interchanges. Although having said that, we are going to go back to a much more standard one with this, and we're going to do a parklow here. So I'm going to grab this road that we have here and we're going to bring it out as a bridge over this highway. So let's go to raised segments here, and I do want to bring it out straight, so actually, do you know what, I'm going to do something a little bit bizarre. I'm just going to draw it straight over with Anarchy like that, and then we can extend it up this way just a little bit, and it's relatively flat up this side, so it's not too bad. But here what we want to do is, of course, make sure that this is, it doesn't have to be level. I don't mind having a slopey bridge going over the highway, but it needs to be high enough to let those trucks past, which I'd say that is probably actually plenty of room. We do now have a lamppost kind of sticking through here though, so let's just grab this node underneath. If we shift it over a little bit, you'll see that lamppost has now come out the other side. We can do the same with the node underneath here, just to remove that lamppost. If you hold Alt, it will stay in place and stay nicely snapped and lined up, so it's much easier to control like that. And I'm wondering with this road whether it might be better to bring it out into a median as we transition here. So I think we'll transition it up to a median somewhere along this road. And of course, I just got rid of our bridge there, so let's change that back. Actually, the slope isn't too bad either. It's a little bit bumpy there, but if we get no controller on that, we'll just slope that out, and then that's a bit smoother. And then we can again use no controller here just to widen that gap, and this will help to make that transition a little bit smoother there too. I'm going to get rid of those zebra crossings, and again we can do some intersection marking tool there to kind of help those lanes flow into each other. Okay, so for our parklow, I'm thinking we'll probably actually do it both sides. I want to avoid this sort of cliff face here, and it's a little bit flatter on both sides as we come out this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a junction right about here. which is going to come out hopefully at a nice 90-degree angle. In fact, let's extend this road on slightly further, just so we've got a little bit more room to play with there. We'll connect it in here, yes, at a nice 90-degree angle like that. I'm not going to worry about the road type. I will upgrade this in a second, but we'll just do this for now. And we're going to bring this down and nice and simply connect it up into this road. I'm going to turn off snapping for this so we can get it in a little bit smoother. And again, we'll worry about directions, road types and heights and smoothness in a little bit afterwards. So let's just start by upgrading that into a two-way road because we are going to need it. That one can turn around there. And then this is going to curve round in a nice smooth curve to meet up with the highway this side. So let's bring out a slip road like this. And then with this, I'll bring it out a little bit further. And then we're going to make a really nice curve here at the end to form our kind of park cloverleaf. So we'll do it like that, and then we'll connect this one up into here. Again, we'll worry about the smoothness and things like that in a second. Let's turn this one around so that we've got the correct directions there, and that kind of forms that section of the park cloverleaf. And then we're very simply going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So something like that will work, but it obviously needs a lot of work. So we'll come to that in the detailing section, but let's just focus on our highway here for a moment. Now what I would like is definitely for this to be a highway road, so I think we are actually going to just divert this off into two-lane highway networks here. So we'll bring this out at a nice angle, and we're going to need terrain lines on for this because we need to kind of make sure that we're not going up too steeply at any one time. Now the easiest way actually, looks like the kind of most gentlest, is to slope it this way. So if we curve it round like this, and we can make sure we're not going up too many lines at once. Now it is going to be a very, very bendy highway. That is simply unavoidable. Again, we're probably going to need some slow down. There's quite a dodgy hairpin moment going on in here as well. But let's do it like that. And then we'll want to convert to a tunnel to get underneath our main mountainside here. Now the way I did this before is I counted the contour lines coming out this side to make sure we were at a kind of similar height either side of the mountain. But I'm actually not going to do that this time. I think we kind of have to. We're going to be forced to bring it out at a higher height on this side. But that's okay if it slopes up within the mountain. That's not too much of a problem. So let's curve it in like this. And then round to this kind of height here, and then what we'll do is bring it back down to ground level, and we're going to start to follow some of these contour lines round. Okay, so I have continued on that highway and done quite a bit more actually. I didn't think it was necessary you just watching me pop in roads in the same fashion once we've talked about the techniques with network multi-tool etc over and over again, so I've done it off camera. But here we go, so we've got our highway that we started and we're bringing it just back down the mountain, following those contour lines nice and gently to get smooth slopes all the way down. I'll come back to this intersection in a second. Then we're just following it around the coastline. Again, trying to make some interesting patterns. So we've got bits that are kind of cut into the mountain way, bits that are more kind of up next to the beach, closer to the actual coast around here. And swooping round so that we can leave big areas for development for small villages and towns out this way as well. So it's kind of like a nicely varied road. And I do actually switch it back in this point back into a national road just so it saves a little bit of space as it goes around some of these tighter coastal areas. And also I figured this area is probably going to be the largest town on this kind of northern side of the map here because it's the largest space available. We don't really need the double road highway as we come down here. And then that just kind of feeds off into a little bit of an endpoint here where we can connect it up into this highway at a later date when we come to design this town. No one's actually going to be using this road, so that'll be absolutely fine for now. And then coming back, I have done this very dodgy intersection here, but this northern side of the map I don't think is going to be massively busy. So I think this intersection should be okay. I have put an awful lot of traffic manager on it, so using lane controls here to make sure that people are kind of going where they're meant to be and they're not turning around in weird fashions here. But it does mean they can kind of come off and down this way. It's almost like just a T-junction, basically. but slightly separated. So a couplet T-junction is what we've done here, but using highway roads. We've made sure that they're giving way in this central bit, so the main flow will continue on the main highway road like this. Lots of intersection marking tool coming up very soon to tidy that all up. But yeah, I think it's come out quite nicely. And I really like this actually, where in some points where it's cutting into the mountain, I've just done one road as the raised highway here, which gives that nice kind of almost sound barrier looking security barrier effect on that side. And then we're still kind of going to ground level on the other side. So I really like how that looks in the side of the mountain here. Could maybe do with a little retaining wall decoration, I'd say, on this side, just to finish that off. Although actually the wall's kind of always sitting on the ground, so it's probably not needed there. But in other places where it's lifting up, a retaining wall would do really nicely to detail that up. So bigger picture, yeah, this road then also feeds into our starting highway. And I didn't show you this intersection because it is literally what we have at the start of Solitude, exactly the same intersection here. So what we're doing is just going underneath the main highway to form a very basic three-way intersection. Like the one thing is that this road crosses over here. So again, we've got a giveaway point here to make sure that traffic is continuing to flow this way rather than adding priority to the sort of turning lane that we have here, which will be turning across the traffic, but it should be fine. We'll see how it goes. If it needs changing up, then we can, but it fits really nicely into these very steep slopes that we have around here. It kind of feels like it makes sense at this point. Whereas some of the other places or designs of intersection would be really, really tricky to get into this very kind of specific terrained space. So if we take a look at the bigger picture, we have now got coastal highways around almost the entire map. We'll obviously finish this one off as we build down here, but that's nice and straightforward. And we've got lots of lovely intersections, so it's all kind of connected up, which basically gives us access to the entire main island. Please do let me know your ideas for any of these little valleys in the comments. I'd love to do some really quirky kind of fun out there builds. If you've got places of interest, drop them into the comments as well and I will take a look. But that does lead us on to some detailing, so it's not the usual detailing, not the usual episode, but we will be coming in with tons of IMT. It's basically an IMT time-lapse, honestly. Just to finish these all off, little bits of rocks and foliage, maybe a couple of retaining walls around some of these junctions, but we'll make it all nice and pretty. So that does it for another episode of Solitude. I think the intersection has come out quite nice. The detailing I've done on it is really quite basic at the moment because obviously we're going to be putting in a big downtown around it, so I didn't want to overdo it and do too much, but I do like the little touches of rock in amongst it with some of the dirt decals underneath the trees as well. I think that gives a nice effect, and of course lots of AMD, so our junction makes sense. But I think it's sitting into the area really nicely, and I cannot wait to see cars flowing over this. I'm pretty eager to get some kind of build in so that we can get cars getting over this sharpish, because I think that will be really nice with all of the layers, seeing that all flow around. But for today, that is going to be it. So if you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated. And of course, keep those suggestions coming in the comments. I love to hear your suggestions. We've got so much space on this map. I'd love to get some ideas for some really interesting, quirky builds amongst it. And we'll be back to a normal schedule next week, but that is all from me for now. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.